Hi, this is a complete leveling guide for a Templar using lightning spells. Templar is one of the most popular characters that may be summarized as a paladin archetype. Its most recognizable trait, seen across almost all ascendancies, is its proficiency in making use of elemental spells, especially fire and lightning types, and quite good defensive features. Inquisitor is an excellent class for a well-rounded elemental damage dealer that utilizes critical strikes and is predisposed to protect itself with life, as well as energy shield. Hierophant is the best pick for totem users or generalist spellcasters that derive their power from mana. This guide will cover all the basics for leveling with a Templar that uses lightning spells. Lightning damage is the type of elemental damage defining the upper part of a skill tree, very accessible for a Templar. You can comfortably source enough damage from skill tree only, without much investment. We wouldn't recommend pursuing the attack specialization. Attacks, in general, are the domain of classes that start at the bottom of the skill tree and require a good weapon. We also would not choose fire damage over lightning, only because we want to use the arc spell. It's extremely good for leveling. The elemental overload combined with lighting mastery for non-critical strike hits to be lucky offer a major damage boost early on. As you start mapping, or after the first few acts, you can switch to critical strikes by allocating Righteous Providence or Conviction of Power, which is again a big damage spike. It's one of the easiest to grasp and straightforward leveling techniques that can be used at a league start as it requires no specific items. Even if you plan to create a Righteous Fire build, it is efficient to level up using this guide and re-specialize later. Only if you play as a Guardian it may be suboptimal. What we recommend to start with is Lightning Tendrils, as it's a spell available at level 1 as a reward for killing Hillock. It has a short range, but it's good enough to carry you through the first act, at the end of which you will be able to switch to Arc, which chains off of enemies at a very high speed. It lets you kill a pack of monsters with 1 or 2 casts with no need for aiming. If you have Tabula ready, link it with Onslaught, Arcane Surge, added lightning damage, and added cold damage in Act 1. In Act 2, switch some of them to add faster casting and elemental focus. If you already plan to deal critical strikes, use increased critical strikes and power charge on critical. In Act 3 you can pick up Enervate, Lightning Penetration, and Inspiration. Act 4 offers Spell Echo and Chain support. Don't pursue critical strike chance gems if you have elemental overload taken. Another skill that can improve your performance is Orb of Storms. For as long as you cast spells near it, it will hit enemies alongside you. It's quite useful early on to boost your damage, or can be later linked to overcharge support to shock more efficiently. It's available at level 4 and synergizes pretty well with the lightning tendrils you will use for the majority of Act 1. After linking your arc with elemental focus you will no longer be able to shock with it, but with Orb of Storms, you can still do it efficiently with overcharge support. Link it with low-level Arcane Surge and later switch it for power charge on critical and increased critical strike support gems. Flame Dash is a simple dash spell to move faster and dodge attacks. Link it with a low-level Arcane Surge support to have its bonus applied with a single use of this spell. Conductivity lowers lightning resistance of your foes. If you already have a 100% crit chance with Inevitable Judgment, abandon it, and replace with Assassin's Mark, which is a much better curse for more crit damage and crit chance. Steelskin is a guard spell that you can set up as your movement key to gain a temporary buff that mitigates incoming damage and stops bleeding. Hydrosphere. Cast it once to make enemies around it drenched. It applies cold and lightning exposure, which reduces their resistance to these types of damage. You don't need to level it up. There's no reason not to pick Holy Flame Totem, unless you're short on red sockets, that is. You can place it to deal more damage, be immune to curses, regenerate some life, and redirect aggro. Cast Sigil of Power once and try to stand inside of it while casting spells. It adds lightning damage. The buff Lightning Golem grants will increase your cast speed. We recommend linking it with cast when damage taken to have it re-summoned automatically from time to time. You can use other golems instead if you prefer them. With Pious Path and capped fire resistance, you should be able to sustain regular Righteous Fire. It grants you more spell damage. If you can't sustain the life drain, Use only the Vol variant that lasts just a few seconds, or don't use it at all. There are a few auras to choose from. Determination is very popular, and you should definitely start using it around Acts 6 to 10. It grants more armor to mitigate incoming physical damage. Herald of Thunder adds lightning damage and is capable of hitting enemies on its own, as long as you manage to consistently shock and kill them, so we wouldn't recommend it if you're using elemental focus support in your main arc setup. Wrath grants simply more lightning damage to spells. Clarity regenerates your mana. It may not be needed at all with the right gear, but it's the first available aura. In the later stages of the game, Zealotry outclasses other offensive auras. It grants more spell damage, much like Wrath, but less of it, increases crit chance, and crit multiplier for spells. On your gear, look for increased or added damage to spells and cast speed, which is mostly found on a weapon. The listed gems require mostly intelligence, and that's covered by the passive skill tree. For defenses, look for maximum life and elemental resistances. Use essences of torment, wrath, scorn, or loathing on a weapon. Crit chance starts becoming worth searching for since level 50, maybe higher, depending on your situation. Tabula Rasa has 6 sockets where you can accommodate any gems. It's great. Goldrum Helmet is used mostly for its overabundance of elemental resistances. It can too be worn at level 1. La Hup of All is a ring with a lot of elemental resistances, some attributes, and increased damage. Praxis grants a lot of mana regeneration, and lowers mana cost of skills. Useful when combined with Tabula Rasa. Dream Fragment significantly improves cold resistance and mana regeneration rate, which goes hand in hand with Clarity. It prevents freezing and chilling, which is useful in some places. You may want to put your Conductivity gem in the Mark of Submission to automatically hex enemies on hit. Astramentus is only to be used when you need more attributes. Because of that, it's also very good with Righteous Providence. Atziri's Foible reduces attribute requirements and significantly boosts your maximum mana and mana regeneration rate. Voice of the Storm is a good amulet if you have a lot of lightning resistance or critical strike chance. It also has the upgraded version, Choir of the Storm, that requires level 69. We recommend the variant of String of Servitude with a bonus to all elemental resistances. It can get you up to 144% resistances. If you value movement speed over anything on your boots, which is reasonable at early levels, use 7 League Step. Wanderlust is a pair of boots with increased movement speed, mana regeneration rate, and freeze immunity. You can use Lifesprig Wand since level 1, and at this point, it's quite good for most of the spell damage builds. Storm Prison requires level 12. It increases mana regeneration rate, damage, adds lighting damage, increases the upper limit of power charges, and grants them on kill. At level 10 you can start using Axiom Perpetuum, which adds cold, fire, and lightning damage, increases cast speed, elemental damage, and critical strike chance. Use Safil's Frame for increased spell damage, spell block chance, elemental resistances, and maximum resistances. It would help you sustain Righteous Fire if need be. At first, use Quicksilver, Life, and Mana Flasks. If you want to really go fast, don't use other flasks and allocate the Traitor Keystone from Brutal Restraint. It has no level restriction. The other flasks you may want to use are Diamond, Granite, and Silver flasks. Here, we've showcased all the best nodes you can find on a passive skill tree. S-tier passives are good and you should definitely pick them, no question about that. The next tier consists of also good passives, which may be not necessarily as good and universal. B tier is even less so versatile. These nodes may be good only in a specific circumstance or at a particular stage of the leveling process. The best passives are clustered around your starting location and on the top of the skill tree. Discipline and Training is one of the best notables for more maximum life one can get. Near it is Light of Divinity for spell damage, attributes, and crit chance, which are all useful. Choose Holy Dominion for elemental resistances, elemental damage, and a chance to shock. Devotion is your second notable for more maximum life, and also increased effective auras. Divine Judgment is one of the best nodes for simply more elemental damage. Every build needs some reservation efficiency. Here it is granted by sovereignty. The third notable that increases maximum life, but also energy shield and chaos resistance, is Purity of Flesh. Lightning damage and cast speed are very efficient damage sources. Get it by allocating crackling speed. Mental Rapidity is yet another node for more cast speed, but also mana regeneration rate. To keep up with the increasing damage received, get more maximum life from the Cruel Preparation. The big lightning cluster at the top offers some great passives, Heart of Thunder being the better one of the two. The next tier introduces some crit chance or damage. Pick Annihilation and Arcane Potency if you need it, these are the most accessible. Going down from your starting location you can score some defensive passives and armor mastery. Going left you can gain life, mana, some resistances, and spell damage. The B tier offers shock-related nodes, so these have limited use if you've linked Arc with Elemental Focus. It's also not as efficient as simply increasing damage, penetration, cast speed, or critical strikes. Most of them are also quite far from your starting point and it's always better to get cluster jewels if you can afford them. Elemental Overload is good early and quickly exhausts its value. Pick the 2 Masteries for increased and added maximum life. It's your main defensive layer after all. You will probably need some extra resistances if you don't have good leveling items. Plus 15% to all elemental resistances from Elemental Mastery is a sound solution. For Lightning Masteries go for lightning damage with non-critical strikes is lucky, and non-projectile chaining lightning skills chain +1 times, which is extremely good for Arc and Orb of Storms. If you need more mana or mana reservation efficiency while using Clarity, get the Mana Mastery with Clarity has 100% increased mana reservation efficiency. If you're using Determination, allocate Armor Mastery for its increased mana reservation efficiency. It's an expensive aura. That is all. Good luck out there.